Have you ever gotten amazing at something? Like so good at it that people compliment you on it left and right? So good that you make your living on it? Not everyone has. And I can't really ask that many more than 3 questions at the beginning of a video without feeling like I sound like some sort of generic infomercial that wakes you up at 2:17 in the morning. So I'm gonna cut to the chase. In terms of getting amazing at just one thing, what if I told you there's something you can do instead that yields similar results and is becoming more future-proof as time passes? Welcome to my channel. My name is Samuel and I want to make self-growth normal. If you want to make self-growth normal because I don't want to do it alone, then make sure to just gently tap that like button. It helps so much with the YouTube algorithm and I really appreciate it because so much work goes into making these videos. I've done both of those things. I've gotten amazing at something. Not to brag, I'm just saying, and hey, if I am bragging, we all have something to brag about. Go ahead and tell us in the comments below what you do best. I've also learned how to do a bunch of different things well, and it sucks that a lot of success gurus and thought leaders and whatnot are saying that within skill development, you have to focus on one thing forever. I'm never gonna do that in a video ever again. Or else you suck eggs and your parents will suck eggs and die in a military squirrel fire. Malcolm Gladwell is known for popularizing the popular 10,000 hour rule. Robert Greene talked about deliberate focus and a lot of other things in the masterfully written Mastery. And it all begins to sound a little redundant until you run into a book like Range by David Epstein about why and how generalists triumph in a specialized world. And you hear generalists and you hear specialized and you hear triumph and you associate that with generalists and you scratch your head and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? Let's talk about the contents of this book throughout the chapters because 1, this is a book review, and 2, you should have seen the look on my face when I finished the introduction. I really like the way this guy thinks. He begins with the story of the Polgar sisters. You know the 3 Hungarian sisters who became masters at chess? I forget what Robert Greene book I heard this from. It may have been Mastery. But they broke record after record and after record, and their dad made this decision. This is something I would probably do if I had $3. He was like, my 3 daughters are gonna be the best chess players in the world. And if they didn't get there, they got very close. He's quoted as saying that if 1,000 kids did what my daughters did, each with different things, the world could far, far, far more easily tackle problems like AIDS and cancer. Isn't that a bold claim? For the rest of the book, the author argues in a really, really unexpected way against this logic. It reminded me a lot of Malcolm Gladwell for some reason. I can't put my finger on why. He talked about something called smashing the like button in case you haven't already, and something else called chunking, which blew my mind. And at the end of this chapter, I was like, where is he going with this right now? Because it just sounds like he's agreeing with the specialists take all philosophy. And the specialists take all philosophy when you get amazing at something like Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan. He explains where it came from. It seems like it really came from school. Throughout the book, there are quite a few subtle jabs at traditional education. The book is really endorsing what people consider Renaissance education. You learn about how the orphan foundlings of the Venetian sex industry, who by the grace of charity would have ended up in the city's canals, were transformed into the world's original, OG, traditional, international rock stars. A time when music was a profitable industry. These people were learning how to play instruments that didn't even exist. It's so impressive that it doesn't even make sense. But when you're self-taught, you experiment more and you tackle different problems that you simply just would not otherwise. It takes time, and I say this a lot in my videos, but I played piano for 8 years. I taught myself. I never learned sheet music. Then I started making rap, EDM, and pop instrumentals. Eventually I found ways to combine all 3 of them. Then I started rapping and then eventually singing. And I found myself looking for as many ways as possible to make it sound impressive and unique. It's on my channel. Some of my piano playing is also on my channel, but I'm saying from experience, I seriously resonate with a lot of the stuff in this book. In fact, as a book reviewer, I'm a little worried that this might be a bigger reason I enjoyed the book than I'd like it to be. Books that support my viewpoints are, they're nice and all, but there's a degree to which they're not the most refreshing thing since cold water. And the book reminded me strikingly of ultra learning by Scott Young, but it's very, very different. Like, it's like the other side of the coin almost. Range just covers the topic of skill acquisition in such a distinct way, one that, unless you hear the author out, probably sounds counterintuitive. He says that the teaching strategies that teachers today experienced are no longer good enough because knowledge increasingly needs not merely to be durable, but flexible. I love hearing stuff like this. Who thinks of words like knowledge as durable or flexible?
Probably a generalist.
You learn about how tackling problems beyond what seems like your understanding more often than you might think will require you not to think out of the box, but think out of the domain in which you can even see the box. The chapter, The Trouble with Too Much Grit, this chapter is a little strange. The whole book is a little strange. It reminded me, again, a lot of Malcolm Gladwell, but only in terms of uniqueness and how he explains it. I really don't think this is something Malcolm Gladwell would ever argue or write about. Topic-wise, and toward the middle of the book, the content becomes less scientific and a little bit more anecdotal. He says that rather than expecting an ironclad a priori answer to who do I really want to become, it's better to become a scientist of yourself, asking smaller questions that can actually be tested. There are so many stories of people who were incredible at what they do and they did not have any idea what that was for so long. But until the point that they did, what they did was try out valuable things that helped them master it more thoroughly and well-roundedly. If a negative review by chance thinks that the book is repetitive, I would guess it's probably around this chapter that they begin to think so. He goes over how not being someone who spends all their time on a specific skill can be helpful for innovation. This seems to be a common thread throughout chapters, reminded me a little bit, just a little bit, of The Wisdom of Crowds by James, I really hope I'm pronouncing this guy's name right, Surowiecki. In terms of generalists, by the way, depending on what you're trying to do, some ventures, not even occupations, are more valuable. But organizations on organizations on organizations can function in ways where specialists and generalists can work in harmony towards smashing that like button, just turning that thing blue. It's the best thing you can do. This is ideal. The best organizations I've learned about are exactly this. Almost anyone who works at an Apple store could tell you they have a YouTube channel, they have art studio, they play an instrument, and yet you don't need any of those things to sell technology, do you? But to sell Apple's technology,
You do, right? Like,
by the way, something I like a lot about the book, and I don't think I did this that well in the review, but many books I find will include the introduction and exploration of like a dichotomy between two different things that many people can theoretically be classified as if one is good and another is bad. Sometimes this is things that no one can even control. And I was worried just looking at the cover that the book might have something a little like this, but I think the author did a great job at not making it sound like specialists are really bad or anything like that. It focuses disproportionately more on the empowerment of generalists than the putting down of specialists. I mean, the specialists he describes are legends in their fields. The ones who aren't, I mean, the fields aren't all that specialized. How practical is the information in this book? I'd say it's very considerable. I'd say it's much more considerable than it is practical. If you want to call it practical, it's really mainly indirectly practical. What's interesting to me is that, like, being amazing at one thing versus being amazing at getting good at multiple things is that the latter creates the former, but the former sustains the latter. Isn't that weird? I've said that learning different things isn't like spending all your time learning about one. But I've also argued that depth and long-term focus on one thing, like, I've also argued about the importance of that. But for me to say one is better than two and two is better than one, that would be a little hypocritical because I have spent so much time doing both in my 23 years on this planet. Not trying to brag, once again, mind you, I had a very poor childhood, socially speaking. But you see my point, right? I mean, I would argue that despite the benefits of mastering something, it is, if not very much, will be worth learning about just the benefits of concentrating your forces on many things. If you don't agree, you and me, let's do our thing, okay? Let's keep waking up, and if and when you change your mind about this book, it just might be around awaiting your attention. Generally speaking, I guess. Quotes. It doesn't take much to throw an expert off course. No savant has ever been known to become a big C creator who changed their field. Learning is the most efficient in the long run when it is really inefficient in the short run. A problem well put is half solved. We fail when we stick to tasks we don't have the guts to quit. I have a lot of apps running in my brain right now. It is not what they think, but how they think. Sometimes I joke that I'm not interested in doing research. Only search. Direction 1. I recommend this book for anyone who is really, I don't know. This is a very strange book. The purpose of it is something that, like, I know what need it fills, but I don't know whose need that is, other than just, I don't know, maybe everyone. I'd say I recommend this book to a futurist. Someone who wants to understand more about what the future depends on of the world depends on in terms of skill development. Direction 2. If you like this book, I mean, once again for the 9,732nd time, this is a very rare book. For skill development, you might like Ultra Learning by Scott Young, once again. Great book. I think that's it, really. Like, I mean, no book that I've ever checked out talks about this like that I could possibly think of. Ultra Learning is about getting great at things at like lightning fast speeds. But there's almost like a guide throughout the book of like how to make the methodology work for you. Other skill development books like So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport and Mastery by Robert Greene will boast about the benefits of deliberate practice, which personally I don't disagree with. I do not disagree whatsoever, but they don't talk about the opposite of what they do talk about. In fact, they don't even acknowledge that. Great books though. Range by David Epstein. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, let me know in the comments below, please. I always appreciate that. Also, let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere and I will see you then.